that we can place ourselves properly and to work efficiently and serve the sub-region.
Did you touch on the port project as well?
Well, yes, I think there was a question on the Atuabo Port project. But remember that is a private business endeavor, and it's a project between the government of Ghana and the Atuabo Port Company Limited, whose promoters are Lonro International.
Did you sympathize with the Ghana Ports and Harbors who claim they could have done this instead of bringing in Lonro, because we are in an era of partnerships, as you say, and if there's local capacity to build something, did the Ministry of Transport consider a local builder before the project was awarded to Lonro?
I'm glad you mentioned partnership. As far as I am concerned, I know that the Ghana Ports and Harbors Authority is actually representing government as partners in this project. Indeed, it came under some scrutiny, mainly because the Port Authority felt that it had autonomy or some sort of power to undertake this sort of development. But I believe that at the time, the government of Ghana had agreed that as part of the public-private policy arrangements, we would be allowing this company to promote this facility for the Western region.
And did you ascertain their track record? Because the claim has been that they don't have any track record in building or managing ports.
Well, you know that these things are all things that come up when there's due diligence on a company. I believe that to the best of my knowledge, Lonro is just the promoter of the project. I would also like to state first and foremost that this is a public-private endeavor, and that basically no agreement, at least not in my time since I've been deputy minister, has gone through such scrutiny, both by the public as well as the executive in this country. Secondly, I'd like to indicate that most often than not, when we talk about expertise, what are we referring to? This is just a company promoting a particular activity. They are going to find subcontractors, they are going to find other people to invest in the project. And I'm sure that whether they have a track record in building ports or in mining or in business, I think it is a business entity, and we should all try as much as possible to give them the support that they require. Remember that Ghana is one of the main investment options for most people who are looking for opportunities to invest. I think because of this thing, we have always attracted the best investment in most fields of endeavor and industry. And I think this is one of such examples. And on my part, I know that the Ghana Ports and Harbors Authority is actually going to hold government of Ghana's interest in this company. And I'm sure that whatever regulatory and legal framework will be required to ensure that they do not take advantage of our society in any way, that the portions of the jobs that should come to Ghanaians would come, and that when this project is complete, it would actually provide the jobs that all our citizens.
Well, 10 minutes to 8, we're talking to Deputy Minister for Transport, Joyce Bawa Mogtari. Now, on the question of ports, Kojo, you went to Kumasi and you said that you saw the Buankra Inland Port.
Yes.
I'm not sure it was mentioned yesterday in the press conference, was it?
Oh, it was. It came up.
Okay, before that, what did you see when you got there?
The administration building was put up years ago, and some fencing done around the property.
Yes.
But aside that, I don't think nothing else has been done. The place is overgrown now.
With weeds?
Yeah.
Sure.
With vegetation. And my question is, we've always been told that we are working on it. As far back as February this year, we're told that government was seeking a transaction advisor for the port. What is actually the timelines we are working with, and when do we expect to get that port ready?
Thank you very much. I think you've done your homework. I like to meet people who actually meet me boot for boot. I think that the Buankra Inland Port project is actually something that I've been associated with for a very long time. Remember that I used to be a staff of the Ghana Shippers Authority, and together with the Ghana Ports and Harbors Authority, the idea to build and develop an inland port project was born. First and foremost, indeed, you are right, and I would not want to argue with you on that score, that the building, which is the administration building, is sitting there. It is being maintained. We actually even connected electricity to that part of the building. What I would say is that presently, there's been a lot of interest generated in that project. First, remember that there's a lot of congestion within the port of Tema and Takoradi. The initial objective for which that whole idea was conceived of was so that we could actually develop a facility to undertake the process of reducing congestion in the ports of Tema and Takoradi. What we found out, however, along the line was that all the investors who expressed interest actually realized that without the necessary component of the railway it will be very difficult to make that business a viable one. We have therefore decided to add the Eastern Railway construction to the Buankra Inland Port project. As I speak to you now, the ministry has engaged the services of a transaction advisor, and it's a reputable company, PricewaterhouseCoopers. They would now engage a strategic investor to undertake the execution and implementation of that Buankra Inland Port project. I believe that one, it would create jobs for that part of the country. Secondly, it would reduce congestion at the port of Tema and Takoradi. You yourselves have mentioned that the loads on our roads are just too much, and that we must find a way to reduce the sort of burdens we are putting on our very, very limited road infrastructure. What I believe will happen is that once we have the necessary complement of the railway, it would make it efficient and faster and easier for people to clear their cargo directly from Kumasi, especially for cargo that is meant for the northernmost parts of the country, as well as our landlocked neighbors. Remember that we serve Niger, Burkina Faso, and what have you. And indeed, these are the main culprits when it comes to our road infrastructure and the sort of cargo that is being transported from the southernmost parts of the country to these other countries.
So if I understand you, this is really in the bosom of the investor in terms of the timeline he asked of, because if we don't get a strategic investor willing to start, we don't know when the project would really take off. Is that how I'm supposed to understand what you said?
Well, no. What I would like to say is that, in fact, even in times past, that's as I said earlier, we've had several investors. What we didn't do was to realize the importance or relevance of the railway infrastructure to the viability of that inland port. So what we have done now is that we're looking for an investor who is going to both invest in the construction of the railway as well as the inland port. And I'm telling you, there's a huge interest in that project. As I indicated earlier, Ghana is still one of the best investment destinations, and there's been a lot of massive interest in this project. Basically, all the transaction advisor is supposed to do is to provide guidelines on who gets selected. Remember that in this particular case, because it's a public-private thing, we would need to look at technical, some expertise is required, and of course, funding options are equally important.
Okay.
We also want to know whether we're going to do a build, operate, transfer, or we're going to be doing a lease, operate, and transfer. Because remember, this is going to be a concession to be granted to whoever develops. It might be the same developer wanting a concession to operate. It might also be that someone comes in to develop and that person will come in as an operator. These are the sort of things we require the transaction advisor to guide us as we search for this strategy.
Okay, let's talk about rail since it's connected. We've been doing rail, at least the Accra, Asaprachona, Tema line has been running for a while now. How do you assess it? Are we getting the volumes to show that people are interested? And how many trains do we have? How far have we gone in making rail transport more accessible and available to? On that matter, yeah.
On that matter, we know there was a strike a day or two ago. In terms of real numbers, what is the impact of a strike like that? How much does it cost you? How much does it cost people? How many people use the rail system, for instance, every morning? Are these numbers that are available to the ministry, and what do they do with these numbers when it comes to planning?
Bernard, on rails, can I add
No,
one more question? It's also related to the railway.
You just jumble everything together. Okay.
I think the government has done a very good job, and I want to applaud the government for fixing about 29.5 kilometers of railways in Takoradi. It's still being done. But what are the plans for the other areas, like Kumasi, like the Achimota railway line? We got a lot of comments on that the design wasn't, the comments that came from the workers against all that. So what are the plans for the other suburban railway lines as you are doing for the Takoradi railways?
Okay.
Thank you very much. I think that for the last 2 weeks, actually, we've been grappling with our issues pertaining to the railway sector. Remember that the railways have a very long history, that most of the western region was actually built around the Railway Company Limited. They have actually come into some problems lately, mostly because of the almost obsolete railway infrastructure. Remember that investing in railways has always been a very huge investment, and especially government normally is actually expected to invest in railway infrastructure. Since 1977, the railway infrastructure has been in, I would say, some sort of decline. And I think as we speak now, most of the railway tracks, which used to be viable and operational in the past, are no longer working. Government has been trying on its own to improve and modernize some of these lines, especially those that are currently being used. I think you gave yourself some examples of the Tema and Sawam and Asaprochana railway lines. Those ones are currently mostly passenger operational lines. They are actually carrying passengers from Sawam with a lot of farm produce to Accra and vice versa. What I think is happening now is that we only have two services, one in the morning and one in the evening. We are actually working on them, including a third service, which will be about lunchtime, thereabouts. Mostly we consider the peak hours as the most important. Secondly, remember that those trains, when they are passing by, we all see them in the mornings, they are usually overly loaded with passengers. People know that they are more efficient, they are faster, and travel time is almost cut by nearly 80%. So a lot of people are using them. In fact, when I used to be at Shippers, my colleagues used to take the one from Sakomono all the way to Accra Central. And in 10 minutes, they were at work. So sometimes I'll get in and find people at work at 7, and I'll be wondering why they are in so early. Exactly. So we must all appreciate the need for an alternative means of transportation. One, it will reduce traffic on our roads. It will take off most of the congestion we are all saddled with day in, day out. This morning, for example, I had to leave home at 6:30, and yet I got here at 7:15. If I had to catch a train at the same time, I'd probably have been here in 10 minutes. This is what we should all be looking at. I think what the ministry would like to achieve is mostly a sort of a modally complementary system of transport. But remember, that would require some very huge funds to be able to achieve this. The railways have come very far. As your colleague indicated earlier, the ones in secondary are being worked on gradually. Every time there's some money available, we do a few kilometers. I'm hoping that very soon we would have reached a level where we'll be able to find someone else to partner us to develop. Remember that the Western Railway, for example, is a very, very viable one. It goes through all the gold mining areas. It comes all the way through Sekondi and Takoradi. And of course, remember that this line used to come all the way to Accra. Once we are able to bring this line back into full operation, remember its impact on our society. It would be a huge economic boost for traders. It would be a huge impact on the traveling public especially. So imagine that you didn't even have to get to work. You could live in Takoradi and come to work every morning. Several people do that all over the world. So basically, the railways offer a clear option when it comes to road traffic congestion and crashes.
So is your focus on the passenger usage, as he asked, or your focus is on the industrial usage?
Both. Remember that even if we achieve that industrial usage, we would require complementary passenger usage as well. Specifically in the Accra area, most of the people who use the railways are usually passengers. Whereas when you take the industrial areas, the focus is more on carrying bauxite and manganese and clinker for cement and what have you. So you have to look at it as a balance. What we have done now is to develop a proper roadmap, a blueprint for the railway infrastructure in this country. We're going to engage stakeholders so that everybody can look at this whole new concept and we take a step away from there. Secondly, I've mentioned the Buankra, which is the Eastern Railway line. You'll be connecting Tema to Kumasi. What we want to do is to find an investor to execute that one as well. So yes, a lot is being done in that regard. Remember that the Western Railway line, because of its economic positioning, everybody is interested in undertaking that project. As I speak to you now, negotiations are far advanced to find an investor to invest in developing that railway. Yes, the railways have had some challenges in terms of funds that they are generating for the limited services currently under operation. They are indeed challenged. Mostly the funds they are generating are woefully even inadequate to support maintenance, to support their incomes and all the other conditions of service that they have. Remember that Ghana Railway Company Limited is actually a limited liability company. It is no longer a subvented organization of government. But over time, because government has not been able to provide that financing for the development and modernization of the infrastructure, we have always chipped in to support their budgetary needs. And this has been ongoing for quite some time. We are actually looking forward to finding that investor who will be able to absorb all of this and in partnership with the government of Ghana, revamp and modernize the railway lines in this country.
We'll move to airport soon, but Godfrey has another follow-up.
Follow-up in that the Honorable Minister makes reference to the fact that the funds that are being generated by the rail at the moment is inadequate, and that is why, for instance, I asked how many people pass through the turnstiles, because, for instance, we know the number of ships that pass through the terminal. They know it helps with planning. They know exactly how much money is coming through over a certain period of time. Do they have the same numbers for rails? For instance, every morning and every evening, we know there are 2 trains, one in the morning, one in the evening. Do we have 50,000 people using it? How much money do the 50,000 people generate every week?
Because you are looking at the basis for projections.
For projections. So how do you make these projections?
Thank you very much. As in respect of the numbers of persons using these coaches, I haven't actually been able to establish that. What I know is that they are currently charging 1 cedi per passenger. And when you look at the number of services they run, which is just 2 services per day, that should tell you that no matter how many passengers, even if the carriages are full morning and evening, they will not be making enough to sustain their activities. With regards to the number, I'm sure there is a number. What I'll do is try and ascertain when I get back and let you have it. But of course, several people are using the service, because imagine the day that those services were stopped, we had a lot of pressure on us. Several phone calls, because as I said earlier, several people traversing in Sawam, Accra, and Tema, going to Accra Central, actually use the services of this railway line. But the numbers, I think we can work on that later.
My only worry here is that, so if we don't get investors now, it means we are still going to depend on roads as our basic means of transport. And we all know that the load our roads are carrying now, because we all know that our roads are not designed to carry some amount of loads, but yet we are forcing them to carry those loads. Why don't we find some means of funding and start this? Because the cost to the state, actually, if you look at the destruction of our roads and the amount of money we spend constructing roads and fixing roads every year,
could be more than what we spend even on the rail.
If we are not getting investors, is there no other means we can fund that particular sector and ensure that we save the pressure on our roads?
Well, I think you yourself actually indicated earlier that you have seen some development on the secondary line in particular, that we have actually done about 32 kilometers of that particular line. This is a company initiative which was taken by the Ministry of Transport, and the company has been undertaking these projects in bits and pieces over the last few years. So yes, some work is currently ongoing. What we want is that we want to do this at a much faster pace than we're doing now, which is what this discussion is all about. And to be able to take it to the next level, we must by all means find investors, whether local or international. But let me first correct the impression that when we use the term investor, the idea is not that we're looking for an international partner. No, we have a transaction advisor in place now. If we find a suitable proposal from a local consortium of Ghanaian business people, why not? The idea is to promote made in Ghana. The idea is to promote businesses staying within this country. So if we do find that sort of partnership that is able to implement this project, why not? In fact, one of the main reasons why we actually decided to engage a transaction advisor and to put this project under the PPP was first and foremost to be sure that we reflect our local content regulations in whatever agreement we arrive at with any prospective investors. So there's no doubt that the investment will not necessarily, in fact, there are even proposals that the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority could also set up a sort of SPV, special purpose vehicle, between the Ghana Ports of Harbours Authority, the Ghana Railway Company Limited, as well as the government of Ghana, to find even more available funds to develop the railways. Remember that railways are heavily cash intensive. You require about, for the Western Railway line, we need about 1.2 billion United States dollars. That is a huge chunk of money that government on its own is unable to afford. Once we find these investors who are willing to invest in it, we are not looking at whether they are Ghanaian, whether they are international. That is not the subject matter. We just want someone who has the options that we require, who has the financial muscle and the expertise to execute the project as intended.
There are a couple of questions on air transport coming, but correct me if I'm wrong. I did not hear the expression BRT at the press conference yesterday, and I was quite disappointed because that was one of the most talked about projects a few years ago, the bus rapid transit system. Is it that because the project we are not seeing top, we've decided to delete the name from our press statement? This was the project that was supposed to ease traffic in Accra. World Bank partnered. Why didn't you even talk about it yesterday?
I'm sure we talked about it a bit, actually. Maybe you simply weren't paying enough attention.
No, there was not. I scanned the words in the press statement. The word, the BRT expression was not in it.
I'm actually very disappointed because I remember that I heard the Honorable Minister touch on that particular subject matter. I believe that either it was in the presentation or that a question was asked and a very good answer was given. In fact, even I myself actually did my homework.
BRT. Yes, I didn't hear. Okay. So what? Okay. So what? Where is the BRT?
As we speak now, you know that the problem with the BRT is that it is actually a multi-agency project between the Ministries of Local Government, Ministry of Transport, and of course the Ministry of Finance. We are actually expecting a number of buses, about 298 buses, to undertake that particular project. First and foremost, you know that there were some pilot projects that were undertaken to ascertain the options that are available in terms of what roads and which areas should actually benefit from the bus rapid transit system. Now I am informed that we are going to look at the Amasaman to CMB route. We're looking at Adenta to Accra and of course the Kaswa part of town. I'm sure that over the next few weeks, a lot will be said about how far we've gone with the BRT project. I believe that that is also another option. You know that these huge buses actually take a lot of passengers. So if we're able to implement this, it would also reduce congestion on our roads. Of course, traffic will be something. Imagine if we had one like that coming all the way to ministries. It would make a very
not to cut. I know the value of the BRT, and my worry is that we've mentioned that we are bringing in certain buses, but it seems to me that that is different from the BRT system. That we are bringing in some buses to augment the Metro Mass Transit, but the BRT plan was to do traffic engineering, management, and safety, and then development of the BRT system itself. So is it? And the original closing date was December 2014. So with 5 months to go, we are bringing buses for another project, and you've not updated us on what you started in 2007 actually.
Yes.
So I'm quite confused.
You see, first and foremost, you mentioned the thing to do with traffic management. Remember that since 2007, this project has been in the offing. That must tell you that there's a reason why its implementation has taken so long. Secondly, some infrastructure would have to be put in place to be able to implement fully the BRT system. Yesterday, now that you mention it, in fact, on the slides, there was a prototype, a concept design of what the BRT infrastructure would look like. A committee has been set up now to see to its implementation. And I'm sure that in the next few weeks, you'll see a lot of activity in that regard. Remember, 2007 to date is about a 7-year period of time.
But you should be telling us why. The fact that the thing has been on since 2007,
that alone should tell you
does not justify
that
it. You should tell us what
several reasons why.
Give me one.
One is that we probably need to find the specific locations that are required. And of course, with all the road construction currently taking place, we would have to wait for the roads to be completed. And then remember that these ones require some infrastructure and some sort of terminals specifically designed for those buses.
The Odo Bridge was part. It has been completed. We know that,
and the N1 was part and has also been completed.
So where is the system?
So the system is in its implementation phase, and I'm sure that very soon you see it. And indeed,
I believe myself.
I believe myself.
Doesn't believe myself on this one.
No. I disagree with you entirely on that.
Looking at of our roads and the fact that buildings are springing up just close to the roads. I'm just wondering where we are going to have the terminals, where we'll have the bus lanes and all that, or we'll just close portions of the roads we have now.
Or should we invite you later to come and talk about BRT?
No, we can always do that.
BRT,
it is a very serious subject matter. It is something that I would have wished that we had actually already executed and were fully implemented. But as I said to you yesterday, I remember that one of the slides actually contained a concept paper or concept pictures or something.
Concept again?
Yeah. It means we've moved forward. We've actually now gotten designs on what the the infrastructure would look like.
But I thought we were showing some designs in the initial stages.
Exactly.
When the mayor went to cut the saw.
So that's what I'm saying. In fact, as you mentioned the mayor, last week they actually set up that committee So very soon, a lot of activity will take place.
Soon and very soon, we shall see the BRT. Finally, airport. I don't understand why, and I can't question government's judgment, but I've been to Accra to Kumasi a few times. We seem to be saying we are doing an international airport in Tamale, whereas the transport volumes to Kumasi seem to be higher. Would it not have been more prudent to upgrade Kumasi to an international status and then improve Tamale to a regional? But it seems like if we turn it over its head, we are making Tamale international and we are just improving the capacity of Kumasi. What's going on there?
Thank you very much. I think that your analysis is good, but it's not spot on. First and foremost, remember that Kumasi actually has some serious constraints because of lack of space. There's been a lot of encroachment on the airport lands, making it very, very difficult for us to expand Kumasi further. Remember that we will need to pay very serious compensation for all those people with all those properties to move away from that particular area. Even though we haven't necessarily abandoned the idea of making Kumasi an international airport, we have actually sought to improve and expand the present facility to actually absorb the passenger throughput that we have. Secondly, remember that Tamale, on the other hand, even though it used to be a regional airport, has a lot of space. It is one of the airport properties that has so far not experienced any serious encroachment. So that was one of the main reasons why this decision was taken, to start first with Tamale and probably locate, alternative land to develop an international airport in Kumasi. Remember that we have a lot of pilgrims, both from the northern parts of the country, who all come to KIA whenever there's time for the pilgrimage. This was also one of the reasons that went into this decision. So yes, it would be good for a country of 25 million people to have 3 international airports. I don't think it will spoil anything. If anything, it will just give us more options and make life more comfortable for us all. So yes, I'm sure that there are still plans to do that in Kumasi. But for the time being, Tamale has come on stream and the contractors have mobilized and work is actually ongoing.
We'll read a few comments before you leave. You guys are spoiling for more questions. No, she has the airports. I have to move to
quick one. We are talking about a Tamale airport and a Kumasi airport. One thing I know is that when the decision to upgrade the Kotoka International Airport came up, one thing we were told is we are moving to Pram Pram because there is land. And I know that there is land in Kumasi. That shouldn't be the point. But let's look at the economics of the whole thing. Our Honorable Minister just told us one main reason is because of the Hajj. Yes. But let's look at the Hajj and the trading volumes from Kumasi. Kumasi is more like the central trading point in the country. The number of volumes that go through Kumasi compared to Hajj is the Hajj volumes is almost negligible.
You can say the Hajj is seasonal.
Yes,
but the volumes for Kumasi are
almost negligible. So aside land issues, is that the main reason why we are signing?
Is it a political decision?
How can it possibly be a political decision? As I said, Kumasi has always been a regional airport, just like
because we are just
asking because of Akuko Sachra
and the potential for growth and the economic
acquisition gains. Is always a problem. And remember that today's day and age, land is now an ownership between government and traditional rulers, that you can no longer just go and pass an executive instrument or legislative instrument or compulsorily acquire land all over the place. Look at the 400 acres that was given for the Buankra inland port. The amount of compensation that we had to pay was no joke. So sometimes if the land is available is one thing. If it's unavailable, acquisition is yet another subject matter. But the decision on whether
to site the
airport in Kumasi or Tamale for me makes no. Look, try traveling from Tamale to Kumasi by air. You can't even find the airlines because it is such a short trip. So imagine that you had any cargo for Tamale or Kumasi. The distances are not a problem. So that airport could serve all of Ghana. And remember also that even flying abroad or to any international destination is actually shorter from Tamale as well. We actually even thought that we could set up a fuel depot in Tamale because of the shorter distances, so that aircrafts can go to that airport to refuel and return.
What about the Pram Pram issue? You haven't addressed the Pram Pram issue.
Yes, the Pram Pram issue is a very simple matter. We actually felt that Kotoka was suddenly getting slightly small to absorb the passenger throughput. So there was a decision, a policy decision, to build a new international airport and then to translate this one into a domestic airport solely. We then realized, however, that, as I said earlier, acquiring the land is part of the problem. And of course, now that we've identified the land, we're still going through the processes. But remember that Kotoka itself still has a lot of space around it for expansion. And if we're talking about modernization of that facility, we will not even require additional land. So presently, a lot of activities are taking place. I don't know who's been there over the last few weeks.
So sorry, just to be clear,
yes,
we are gradually going to do an international at Pram Pram.
In the medium to long
but
term.
But we are in the short term expanding Kotoka as well.
And modernizing it, yes.
At the same time.
At the same time.
Godfrey has one final question.
Yes,
we'll read a couple of text messages and you'll be on your way.
Yes, I want to ask the Honorable Minister whether she has seen the domestic terminal at the Kotoka International level. Do you use
day
it?
in, day out, of course.
And you like it?
Of course not. Why would I like it?
And how come nothing has been done
about it? A lot
it?
is being done. We are planning on improving upon the existing international terminal.
You don't need to plan for paint.
I know, but you see, in all these things, we have to go through procurement processes.
Madam,
you know,
2 years
when government tries to do things, it's not as easy as it is when a private person
but if
wants to do it.
If it takes 2 years to procure paint, then we have a problem.
Escalator.
And the escalator, yeah, I know all about that.
I don't want to make it advanced.
The restrooms, I know all that.
Chairs,
I stand in the queue myself all the time. All of that, even the ceiling and
the horrible customer service,
all of that. And
so when are you going to deal with it?
I'm happy you are bringing all these things up. Remember,
no, she's aware. She uses the airport regularly,
very regularly. So when I receive this feedback, I'm not surprised. I don't even feel bad that you're saying it because I feel the same and I share in your sentiments. And I'm sure that as part of government, I would want to see you all, compliment the effort being made. But yes, with regards to the Ghana Airport Company, I think that they have fallen short of expectations of the family.
Falling short of the glory of God.
I am actually attending a meeting there today, and I'm hopeful that some staff are probably listening and know that it's not just minister or deputy minister saying this, but that we want to see an improvement.
Let's read some comments for you. Kojo Akoto.
I will tell you about our favorite chopper.
If you go to Kumasi Airport, there's some chopper. God.
An orange kiosk in the airport. It's a chopper.
Oh Lord.
I know about all that.
This is Ghana, the gateway to West Africa.
I know. We're trying very hard.
Rashid from Adenta says, indeed, railway development will help Ghana. Can we be assured of safety as maintenance culture isn't something we can boast of in Ghana? Derailment can result in a great number of casualties of passengers and roadside squatters. And this one says, listening to your interview with the minister, one can't help but notice the language used. Folks always use phrases like we are trying to, we are about to start,
future
we are on it. That's when you push them for deliverables. I see this in some elements of corporate Ghana. I think as a people, it's about time we stick our hands out of its comfort zones and begin to be delivery focused. It's a shame really from some. Now this one says, Bernard, I don't see how railways operations will take away traffic on our roads when transport operation is not regulated. I feel those who can afford will still buy buses and operate them and thereby congesting traffic on the roads. What do you think?
If passengers opt for rail, then the bus business may not be as lucrative. So it's a demand issue.
Ametepe says, good morning, guys. I like the eloquence of the deputy minister, but you should all know that development of railways has always had an objection from major stakeholders such as haulage and transport owners who are political heavyweights. The decision requires boldness, and I wish they will have it.
Be bold!
Be bold. Ernest from Tema says, Bernard, please, is your guest giving us promises without timelines? She should provide us with some timelines. Elon from Medina says, is there a possibility for underground railway for trains to operate on, like in the United States?
Overground, so you want to do underground. Twitter comments here. Flosodum says, please, the deputy minister was doing very well until the BRT arrived. Madam, please do your homework on this issue. Another comment. Did she say we have to pay compensation for encroachment? I mean, people trespass onto your property and you have to compensate them?
Yes,
this is
even
Kofi.
squatters have rights.
Kofi Asensu Joseph Eduse wants to know how much it will cost to fix the rail line between Awaso and Takrady. The bauxite hauling trucks are destroying the Takrady Road. Kwesi Asante Kwabia says, hey, pilgrims to Mecca, hence the Tamale International Airport, hence Hajj occurs once a year. More comments. Somebody says, Bernard, forget it, the BRT won't happen anytime soon. And then this comment coming through, it's an inquiry actually. Trotro Diaries wants to find out how your ministry engages young people with initiatives to support the transportation sector and points of contact, because there are some people who think they can help deal with the issues.
And one more question. This one says there have been discussions on the review of the mandate of the National Road Safety Commission to take control of the road safety problem. Any updates on that?
Well, I think that is, for me, one of the most interesting points, because I actually thought that one of the highlights of the discussion this morning was center on the National Road Safety Commission, especially with the speeds of crashes that we're still experiencing as the country. Yesterday, the Honorable Minister made a passionate appeal to you in the media to help us with our advocacy and with our education on road traffic regulations. Yes, a lot is being done. As I speak to you now, there's a draft bill currently in the offing. We are working on actually reviewing it with all the stakeholders to ensure that in the next few months, when Parliament returns in October, this will be one of the bills that the Ministry will be presenting to Parliament for necessary accent. Yes, road safety is a big challenge in this part of the world. I think we continue to experience growth or numbers or increasing numbers in crashes. And yes, we want to do more to reduce the spate of accidents and deaths. Remember that as a people, we lose a lot of lives to our roads than even people who fall ill. And this is not a very good statistic. So indeed, what we are trying to do is to try and get more people involved in this campaign to preserve lives on our roads. We must all remember that every road user has a first rule of thumb, which is to observe road safety directions or activities, and of course ensure that the life of other road users are not endangered by your activities. I think the Driver Vehicle and Licensing Authority is doing very well in that regard. They have now made all their services online. Drivers have to take some tests before they are issued with driver's licenses. And I think, yes, these are all very positive things that are ongoing and helping us. I think someone said something about timelines. Remember that this BRT issue actually started in 2007. We are talking 7 years now. There must be some bottlenecks. The congestion on our roads are part of this problem. Secondly, trying to find adequate space on roads that have all these buildings to the left and to the right of the shoulders becomes a real challenge. I am sure that every effort has been made to implement the bus rapid transit system. It is a multi-ministerial approach issue. Several ministries are involved. It is not just in the preserve or remit of the Ministry of Transport. But yes, it is something that will help alleviate congestion on our roads, and we all agree that something must be done. On our part, we are trying to augment the fleet of buses that are currently being run by Metro Mass Transit Company Limited and Intercity STC. When we bring all these on board, remember that these are actually subsidized services which serve school children, aged people, our friends with disabilities, and the wider public. Remember that the network also covered by these buses is very, very far-reaching and goes to about every nook and cranny of this country. So these are all efforts that we are making to bring about a change in the face of transportation in this country. This can be coupled with the railway developments that are currently ongoing. With railways, when we talk about timelines, a transaction advisor has been engaged. His mandate is for 3 months to provide us with the search and the guidelines, and of course a choice of a strategic investor. Once we get that, I'm sure that in the next 3 months, which is the next quarter, some activity will be seen in the modernization and revamping of the railway sector. With regards to the aviation in particular, specifically your comments about Kotoka International Airport, I share your sentiments as well. I actually wish that Kotoka were worthy of our praise rather than condemnation and criticism. A lot is being done. Yesterday, actually, we indicated that the restrooms, which had actually come under a lot of criticism, had actually been improved upon. The leaking roofs is being replaced. The escalator, there was a reason why we were unable to work on it as quickly as we should have, because I believe that it was a specific type of equipment that was procured, I think, about 40 years ago, and it appears it's no longer even in manufacture. So we had to find a new manufacturer to try and replace it. And this also would come at an equally huge cost, and everything is being done to work on it. A lot is being done at the airport as we speak, especially KIA, Kumasi, and of course Tamale. We are also looking at the aerodromes that are going to be developed in other regional capitals which do not have airport facilities, and that is who We are looking at improving upon what we have in Sunyani and what have you. Takoradi is directly using a military base actually for its commercial operations. So what we want to do is to procure a site outside of the military base and to develop an airport. Takoradi is opening up also because of the oil and gas services. So yes, we will need a better facility which will run both commercial and cargo activities.
Madam, thank you. Joyce Bawa Mogtari, Deputy Transport Minister, thank you for talking to us. We wish you well. Listeners, thanks for your comments. We're moving straight into the economy. We are being joined by Dr. J. Kwachi. We'll be talking to him shortly. Well, we'll be finding out